The format of this meeting is a 10-minute speaker, our secretary's announcements, a coffee and a snack break, and our main speaker. Our first speaker for tonight is, you know who it is?
Parish.
Parish. All right, my bad.
All right, Parish.
Parish alcoholic.
Parish.
Ah, man. Grateful, recovering, or shall I say discovering alcoholic. I would never have thought that I'd be on a Saturday night hanging out, divulging personal information to unknown people, right? You know what I mean? Or talking about God, right? I'm gonna try to stick to the format. It's what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. My mind is so discursive, it's everywhere, you know? I'm learning so much through the program. This 12-step of recovery is much more than what I thought it was. It's therapeutic for me. I analyze myself. It's just like so much. It's helped me. It's transforming me. That's what it's doing. I'm grateful to it. I got a sobriety date of 10/4/24. My home group is Los Amigos. Let me see. Well, I started drinking off young, man. I started drinking with my uncles. My uncles introduced me to alcohol. But alcohol was a solution to my problem, and the problem was me. From a very young age, I remember it like vividly. My uncles would be partying and drinking, like in the next room, smoking weed, drinking, and I was at that age like fearful of that. Like to just go out there, I was fearful of people already at that age. Something was already wrong with me, man. I was uncomfortable, in my own skin, fearful, all these things, right? I remember they were drinking and smoking. They introduced me to alcohol. They gave me some beer. I didn't even like the taste of it. I would get the beer and I would pour it out and I would go back into the room and they'd give me another one. I was like, man, couldn't duck that, right? So finally I drank it, and that carried on through years of drinking. I started drinking with them, and then by like 6th grade, 7th grade, I was off and running. Already had a liquor store that I was going to on Colorado and Eagle Rock. Mike's one's liquor. His name was Mike, Chinese Mike. He would sell me beer. I would have it in my backpack. He would tell me, just put it in your backpack. Put it in your backpack. So I was already off and running, and I'm the bottom of the barrel drinker. I drink Taka Vodka, that 211, a Hurricane. I mean, I like to get straight to the point, straight to do it. You know what I mean? No wasting time. And that carried on till I was like 38 years old. My drinking led me to being homeless on the streets. I was staying on the side of the 10 freeway for a while. My drinking led me to getting cirrhosis and jaundice, man. I was drinking till my eyes turned yellow. You know, the only time they talk about it, jails, hospitals, and institutions. And I don't say it proudly, but I graduated from all those, you know what I mean, with flying colors. You know, 5150 holds. That, like, this fear, this uncomfortable, like, just being so uncomfortable with myself, man. I didn't care about anything as long as I had that drink in me. You know, I was okay. My drinking, it also led to me catching a prison term, all due to alcohol as well. I was staying on 27th and Central, and I was at a Superior Market with my girlfriend at the time, and I was boosting beer. I was walking out the grocery store, and a loss prevention officer tried to grab me. Someone else tried to grab me. I two-pieced one. How dare you touch me, right? They gave me 5 years for that. I ended up doing 7 off of that 5 years. This is all due to alcohol. That's what my drinking leads to, you know. I don't know how to live out there, man. And this is what I'm discovering in here, that I don't know how to live out there, that I need a design, that I need a program, you know. And now this program comes oozing out of my pores. It's like spiritual, like principles for personalities, right? Doing the uncomfortable to be comfortable, you know, talking to people, doing the contrary action. All these things are due to this program, man. That's why I said it's transforming. It's life-changing. I didn't know that I needed it. And in fact, it was repulsive. I would come into meetings and I hated it. I would come in here and I would look at you guys, everyone's happy and shaking each other's hands, and I just didn't get it, you know? I felt, I never felt a part of, you know? I never felt a part of the crowd. I never knew that I even wanted that, you know? I was like, to me, my drinking and using was separation and isolation. I come into these rooms and I get connection and I get direction. I get direction from my sponsors, from you guys. There I go talking about God, you know what I mean? I hear what I need to hear. I hear God through other people, and it's so powerful, man. It's what I need. The thing that I was trying to avoid so much is what I'm seeking now, coming in here, you know what I mean, on a Saturday night. Like, I could be out doing something, you know what I mean? Like, but I'd rather be here, talking to you guys, connecting with you guys, meeting with you guys. You know, there's something about it. I can't put my finger on it, you know? So, yeah, so what occurred, okay, so I do the 7 years in prison, right? I get out, I go back to the old neighborhood, join a program again because I need an address. Join the program. I don't like that program, so I get transferred. My parole officer lets me transfer, so I end up in Downey, away from the neighborhood. Now I'm in Downey, and I'm over there sending a message request to girls. I ain't got nothing. I got a backpack. I'm on parole. You know what I mean? I'm over there thirst trapping, duck lips, shaking, like, all these pictures of me. You know what I mean? Using my roommate's clothes to you know what I mean? Go to meetings. You know what I mean? And God will use your character defects to, like. That's how he got me pulled in here. I was out there chasing tail. You know, I was out there chasing a woman. You know, I got with a woman who's like really in love with his fellowship, very much involved in it. And for 4 years, I was not doing it. They talk about being open, honest, and willing. I was doing none of those things. I was doing the program because it was kind of like not a requirement, but she was telling me, she's all like, if you want to be with me, you got to stay sober. You got to stop doing your old ways. You know what I mean? And so I was doing it for her. I wasn't doing it for myself. And I was just wrecking my life. I was wrecking my marriage. I was wrecking my job. I was miserable, man. I didn't know. From the time I got up to the time I went to sleep, I was always on go. Just doing, never being present, never listening, just busy, avoidance, never looking at self, never looking at others, not paying attention. Everybody was just bothersome, you know what I mean? Like, I still had those ways in me. If I couldn't use you, I don't need you, you know? And today's the complete opposite, you know? I rather give than take nowadays, and it's due to this program. I can't explain, like, it's hard for me to break down, you know, because I was always looking for like a simple or like an exact design of how I had like many counselors, life coaches. I had all these like things when I was in programs. I was like, what do I have to do to stay sober? What do I have to do? Give me a direct, like a blueprint of what I got to do. You know, like overcomplicating things, you know, and it's like I come in here and keep it simple, man. The 5 things that was suggested, I love it because it's a we program. I thought I could do it by myself. I thought it was just a simple, clear point decision, mind over matter. I'm just going to stay sober. I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to use, man. I come in here and it's like, what, step 1, we, you know. I can't do it without you guys. I come in here and your presence, I need you guys, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, so the 5 things that we do are Yeah, that we do to stay sober. Okay, 5, we don't drink. 4, we go to meetings. 3, we get with the sponsor. 2, um, 2, we work the steps. And 1, we be of service. I do these 5 things, right? And it's working. I'm not trying to overcomplicate it. I'm not trying to, you know what I mean? Like, I would like to think, I'm reading these self-help books, Eastern philosophy, metaphysics, the universe, this and that. You know what I mean? I'm trying to figure it out. I can't figure it out, man. It's just something about these meetings. I'm networking. I'm calling people randomly, checking up on them, and I have a concern. I actually care. I'm actually listening. You know what I mean? They talk about it, the bondage itself. I come in here, and it's like liberating. It's freedom to not think about myself because I'm self-centered, self-absorbed. It's always all about me, my ego. Some other funny stuff. They say, your ego is not your amigo. You know what I mean? It's a humbling process that I'm going through, you know, from thinking I can do it, I'll figure it out, to coming in here and be like, you know what? I need help. I need guidance. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to live, you know, and it's all due to this program. Like I said before, I would never have thought in a million years I'd be up here on a Saturday night talking to you guys, you know what I mean? Making a suggestion, making a recommendation, man. Don't wait as long as I did. If you're new, I suggest you get with a sponsor who has working knowledge of the program, hit meetings, and do the 12 steps. You know, I heard somebody behind the pulpit one time, or the podium, and they were saying, okay, you're in the 12-step program of recovery, but you're not doing the 12 steps. It's kind of like, why am I here, you know? Just sitting on the sidelines, hearing. Before it was just me coming in and out, in and out. I didn't want to talk to nobody. I didn't want to hear what you had to say. I didn't want to get a number. If somebody asked me for my number, I'm like, well, you're a weirdo. What you mean? Like, what? You know what I mean? So I'm just grateful. I'm grateful today, and like I said, I'm finally discovering myself, and it's all due to this program. Thank you.
Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Now our main speaker will share her experience, strength, and hope with us. Please join me in welcoming Stacy from Montebello.
Hi everybody, my name is Stacy and I'm an alcoholic. And I don't know why I'm worried about the microphone. I'm so loud normally. I feel like I should stand a little bit back. Welcome to the 2 newcomers, and thank you, Parish, for your 10-minute talk. It was wonderful. Just to clarify, because I never really share about my husband. I don't know, in my talk, I don't know why I just leave him out. I mean, obviously he's here and he's a real person. I was telling somebody before the meeting that during, the beginning of 2020, I was at a meeting. It was like February, before the world shut down. And when the little vans bring the guys from the recovery home? And I had time and I was sitting there and he was, hello. He was the cutest newcomer that walked in the room, and my sponsor looked at me and said, absolutely no, not gonna happen. No, I didn't hear that. I heard something else. And so I just forgot to tell her that we were in a relationship for a couple months, and then everybody was on Zoom back then, and I forgot to blur my background, and he goes walking off to do laundry at my house shirtless, and my sponsor texted me while we're on a Zoom meeting. She's like, is there anything you'd like to tell me? And I was like, well, yeah. And it was one more time, just clearing the air and being honest with her. I've only had one sponsor since I've gotten sober, and I called her, and her name is Nancy, and I said, look, I'm already in this. I'm already deep. Are you just going to walk with me through this? And she said, okay. And here we are, coming up on almost 6 years later. And all I had to do was just call my sponsor, right? Like that. I mean, it would have been so easy. I didn't need to like torture myself, but I love to do that. And I love the relationships that I built around here, and I love my friendships, and I love my women friendships that I've made along the way. And I cherish them so much, and I never knew how to make friends for the longest time. I was a weird, like misshapen. I was just like a weird fat kid. And now I'm a weird fat adult, and I'm totally cool with that, right? Like I'm all right. And even I rolled up today, and I was missing an earring, and I'm like, I can't talk. I lost an earring, but you know. I'm totally consumed with self. I was, I came from a family where my mother was an alcoholic. And she was like a party girl. And when I was 12, the party stopped. She gotten sober and went to Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm one of 6 children. I'm kind of in the middle to the top of that pecking order. And I just didn't know, I didn't know that I needed a drink before I took a drink. And I only had one friend growing up, and she was almost 2 years older than me. And she had something that I didn't have. She had a little boyfriend, and I didn't even know how to talk to guys. I didn't even know how to talk to other girls. I just didn't know how to, be amongst the living. Just crazy. And so we went to her house one day, and I was 14. That was the very first time that I took a drink. And by Alcoholics Anonymous standards, I feel like 14 is a late bloomer. And so we go and we just get a big cup and we just fill up whatever we thought looked good, right? We just had this big cup of probably just pure liquor. And so as I start taking a couple sips and, we start passing it around, by the time it went around 2 or 3 times, it was me, her, and her boyfriend. I immediately blacked out, but I knew that feeling that went down. It was just like the cork pop, bam. And it was like I felt like I could breathe. And I didn't know that I couldn't take a breath until I took a breath. That's how it felt for me. And I don't know how I woke up in my own house. I shared a room with my sisters, and I'd thrown up all over the room, and they were really mad. And I called my friend because I wanted to go over to her house and I wanted to do it again. And she promptly broke up with me as a friend that day. She didn't want to talk to me. She didn't want me around. I was already ruining relationships. There was a little thing about me getting drunk and kissing on her boyfriend and whatever, girl. And I just realized that that was going to become a pattern that would carry me through another 20 years of my life, getting drunk and kissing on somebody else's boyfriend. So I just quickly said I didn't even need her. And I just wrote her off as a friend, and I never knew what happened to her. And I went off and I just started partying, and I started doing other things. And from the time I was 14, I hit the ground running, and I was like a junior high dropout. I was incorrigible. I was like one of those bad kids on the Maury show that needs the boot camp. You're not going to tell me how to live my life, as if I'm a grown adult. And the police are bringing me home all the time, and I'm just running around in the streets. And by the time I'm 16, I have completely lost any sense of reality that I ever thought that I have for the purpose of identification in Alcoholics Anonymous. I only talk about, they call it outside issues or whatever they want to talk about, drugs. I really don't talk about that in my story. But by the time I was 16, I'm drinking every day, and I developed another habit at that same time. And that was sticking needles in my arms. And that carried me through another 20 years until I got sober. And I was just doing things for money that little girl shouldn't do. And running around, and you don't know where I am. The only time I ever come home is to steal from my family. And this is my 18th birthday, and I decided to come home. And I always like to come home on my birthday and Christmas or holidays. I always like to come home during those times because I feel like people are in the giving mood and I'm in the taking mood. I want my present. I'm here. You know what I mean? I'm showing up. Give me something. And so I showed up, and I was so tired, and I just crashed out. And my mom came into the bedroom, and she had a cake with the candles, the 1 and the 8 for turning 18. And I sat up out of bed, and I felt really special at that time. I felt really, I don't know what I felt. I don't know. I just, I blew out my candles, and I remember my mom was standing there, and, my mom was already a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous by this time. And she had also found something called Al-Anon, and also started reading books on the thing called Tough Love, which ruined my life. And, so she, I blow out my candles, my 18 candles, and she hands me a card, and I open up the card, and there's no money in it. Devastating, right? But there is some papers, and they're folded up. And so I open up these papers, and it's from the sheriff's department. I got an eviction notice on my 18th birthday, and she wasn't playing with me anymore. She wanted me out of her house. And I was so hurt. That was my biggest resentment when I got sober. That was Number one thing, how could she throw me out into the cold, even though I'm only coming home once in a while to steal from her anyway, but I want on my terms. And everything I do is a manipulation. Everything I do is to like self-serve myself in some way, even though I can't see it at that time, or I couldn't see it for many, many years. And so this is how my brain works, right? This is my alcoholic brain. And this is when my alcoholism was like still working for me and everything was perfect. My one little thought in my brain is that I want to make her hurt the way I'm hurting. Like I'm going to make her feel it. I'm going to go in and I'm going to tell her that I took all these pills. Like I found a big empty like bottle of pills and I was like, I'm going to tell her that I tried to kill myself. Even though like I'm not really going to kill myself. And I didn't know how it worked. I had never been in the hospital. I'd never been hospitalized. And so I just thought that I'm going to pretend to be in a coma. I'm just going to close my eyes, and then after a couple of days, I'm going to magically open them, and then she's going to see how much she misses me and how much like that she's hurt me. She's going to really feel it, and she's going to tell me that I can stay, even though like I don't really want to be there anyway or live by her rules. So I did not work as planned. I go in there, and this is still my 18th birthday, and I tried to kill myself, because I'm such a manipulator. And they rushed me to the hospital, and they give me this stuff to like make me, I'm throwing up in this big basin. And remember, I worked myself up all day, the courage to do this. And they had me like strapped down, and they start putting a tube down my nose and putting stuff in my stomach. I don't know what's happening, and I'm crying, and mascara is going everywhere. And I just remember looking up, and I'm still strapped to the bed, and they have this track when you're in the hospital, and I look up, and the track that goes around like the bed and for the curtain, and I can hear, after I'm getting all cleaned up, and the track is like, shh, and they're shutting the curtain, and I'm just sitting there, and my mom is standing over by the door, and she's talking to the doctor, and the doctor comes up to her and says, Mrs. James, and she said, yes, and he says, well, I don't think your daughter took any pills, but I do think she had SpaghettiOs for dinner. And I was just like so humiliated. Like I didn't know what to do. And they still 5150 you. You still go away for 3 days, even though it's like a cry for help, or I don't even know what that was. But so I got out after a few days and I had a little rest. And I packed my backpack and I hit the ground running, right? That's all I could do. And I was homeless, and I went down to the riverbed, and I was cold and tired, and I don't like to be cold or tired, and I don't like the cold, and I feel like this is not princess treatment for me. And so I met some poor Joe Schmo guy at a gas station, and I moved into his apartment right away, and we got married within a month. And I can tell you that poor man wanted, he was just some dopey guy, poor thing. Like he wanted a wife, something that I was presenting that I was going to be. He wanted me to stay home every night. He didn't want me to drink. He didn't want me to use. He wanted me to, do wife things, like clean the house and, not be out all night and all that stuff. And it was just too much to live up to. So I met another guy, and I left husband number one, and I met this other guy, and probably within 2 months, we're married. I didn't bother divorcing the first one. So I went off, and same thing, he was really upset because I also had like a relationship with his brother, whatever, doesn't matter. And, I'm drinking every night. I'm not coming home. He wants me to maybe cook, clean the house, make a meal every once in a while. And it was just like way too much to live up to. Didn't like him. Within 6 months, I meet husband number three, and husband number three, he likes to drink like me. He likes to party. He's a wild guy. He's a lot of fun. And we love husband number three. We run off within, I think we knew each other 3 days when we got married. And it was almost 3 days too long because I would have ran off with him the first night and gotten married. And, I ended up getting pregnant, and I was homeless with number three, living in his car. The car got towed. He went off to jail, and I went off to, I don't know where I was going to go. And so I decided to call my grandma. And I used to always just like say this part of my story. I used to say like, oh, I just called my grandma because I knew she would, take me home. But really it's because my mother, that was her mother. And they had a very strained relationship, and I knew that. And all I had to say was my mom kicked me out, my mom this, my mom that, and she would have taken me back. Like I'm a great manipulator even from the beginning. And so I knew that I used that to so she would take me there because it was kind of like a dig at my mom, right? And so she opened the doors to me, and, here I am. I have this little baby boy, and it instantly becomes a very weird dynamic because husband number three, he gets out of jail, and he had found something called Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, Alcoholics Anonymous was like his life. He wanted to be a good dad. He wanted to go to his meetings. And it was very weird because it was my grandma, my husband, and my son, and they were like a family unit. And by the time my son was 3 or 4 months old, I started getting really, really thirsty, like really thirsty. And I didn't know, like I felt like I couldn't breathe again. I felt like that anxiety. And I decided, I'm just going to go to the store and I'm just going to get some beer. Because beer's not really alcohol. It can't really hurt you. And by the time I got home and they were barbecuing, he said, "Why are you drinking?" And I said, "It's just beer. It's not going to hurt me." Because he's sober and I was off and running. And by the time my son was a year old, less than a year old, I had been arrested for a crime and I didn't end up seeing my son they gave me 5 years at that time and I did almost all of that. And my son was graduating from preschool when I got out of prison, and he didn't even know me. And I would have sworn the day that my son was born that I looked at him and it was like looking at baby Jesus. I swear, like I wanted to be a mom, like I wanted to do good. I remember the whole time that I was in prison, when I would watch TV, there back in like the late 90s and the early 2000s, there were these commercials that would come on and they were for Bryman College. And I remember I would watch Bryman College. You could be a medical assistant in 9 short months with Bryman College. And I wrote down the number. I was going to go to Bryman College. I was going to become a medical assistant. I was going to take my son away from my grandma and his dad who was trying to keep him from it. Like they were not trying to keep him from me. You know what I mean? And I was going to get an apartment and I was live my medical assistant life. And my dad would tell me things like, he doesn't know about addiction. He doesn't know about anything. My dad is just kind of just a good guy. And he would say, wonderful advice to me all the time, like, just don't drink. Just get a job, don't drink, and just act right. And, he would tell me, I would call him all the time when I was incarcerated. And I say, okay, Dad, okay. And I would try to use that same kind of logic to combat my problems. Like logic says, just don't drink. Logic always would say things to me like, just like get a job, go home at a decent hour, like take care, like clean your house. However, I don't have that kind of problem. I have a spiritual malady and I need a spiritual solution. And I didn't know that for so long. Like that was like where I was, the gap, right? And so I would try to apply that same logic. And I remember the day that I got out. So my dad is white and my mom is Hispanic. And when somebody gets out of prison in my family, we have like a big, like a carne asada for them, like a big party. Everybody's invited, everybody's excited. So I remember I got out of prison, and by the time I made it to my mom's house, everybody was happy for me. My whole family was there, and I was so uncomfortable. I remember seeing my son, and I felt like he didn't like run up to me and hug me and love me the way he should, even though I'd been absent from his life for so long. And I just felt like that same feeling again. And I remember I lasted 2 hours with my family. And I told my mom, I'm going to go to my friend's house right down the street, just like one bus down. I'm just going to go there real quick. And I'll be right back. And I remember my mom, she was already sober, and her grabbing my little hands and her looking at me. And she said, you don't have to do this. And I didn't even know what she was talking about, but I felt like she was looking right through me, like right through my soul. And I said, I'm going to be right back. My whole family was there. And I remember by the time I walked from here, like to the outside of the parking lot and I get to the bus stop, like I just almost couldn't breathe. And by the time I put that little dollar in the slot of for the bus, I felt like I could breathe again because I knew what I was going to go do. I knew I was going to go run off to go kill myself one more time. And I didn't end up seeing my family again for another 6 months until I was arrested one more time. And this time, my grandma, who, loves me, and her and my husband, number 3, they're living like a married couple practically and raising my son. They have a little family unit going. Like their whole answer to me, the problem of me, because now I'm the whole family's problem. They take it on. They needed Al-Anon, and is to let me live in the shed in my grandma's backyard. And I lived there for 10 years. And I would do things like break in every once in a while or sweet talk them every once in a while. I could come in. The holidays were really great for that too. They let me in the big house. And then there's a lot of times where, I would have big blowout fights. I don't even know what I'm yelling and screaming about. And then I'm banished from the house one more time, and I'm out in the shed, and I'm showering with the hose, and I can only imagine, what my son is thinking. And sometimes he feels sorry for me, and he comes and he brings me plates of food and sets it outside for me. And I remember one time I was standing outside and I was smoking a cigarette, and I was looking in, and they have like a back room where they would all like congregate, and it was full of like windows, and every night that they would watch together, they would watch like Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy, and they'd watch all those kind of shows together as a family, and they would eat like, and I'm judging them because I feel like the house is a mess, and why are you feeding my son the TV dinners every night, and it's those banquet meals that have like the corn that gets in the brownie, you know what I mean, and they're eating those every night, and I'm sitting there and I'm watching them like sit as a family and live as a family, and I'm smoking a cigarette, and I'm maybe 10 feet from them, but I feel like I'm miles away. And I don't understand, like, how can I get in there? Like, I just want to be with them. Like, I just don't want to be out here anymore, you know? And I just, like, could not even comprehend any of that in my brain for the longest time. And one more time, mommy's off, and I'm in jail one more time. And while I was in there, you know, my mom ended up passing away. And I felt like I just, like, really needed her. And my son was writing me letters, and I would always, like... So selfish. I would say, send me pictures of my son, you know, put my son on the phone, you know, and it's not, and he didn't even want to talk to me anyway. And I got one letter from him, and he sent me a little picture of him, and I got a picture of my mom, you know, and I remember the son wrote me the letter, and the letter said, hey mom, this time, why don't you ask the judge to go to rehab? There's rehabs for people like you. I was like, people like me? How dare you? You know what I mean? That's his father's influence. You know what I mean? Like, I'm so, like, indignant about, like, just so full of, like, hatred for everybody else. I can't even look in the mirror. It's everybody else's fault that, you know, I'm living this way. And luckily, as, you know, Parish was talking about earlier, like, God used my defect of manipulation that brought me here to Alcoholics Anonymous. And I don't know when I'm going to hear the message. I never know when I'm going to hear the message. But I really, truly believe, like, when you're ready to hear it, like, God is going to deliver it to you anyway, any means necessary. And to me, I was sitting in jail one night and, you know, getting, you know, whatever. And I was looking through and I was crying pictures of my mom and the girl who was my bunkie or cellie or whatever you want to call her, you know, I was crying about my mom, and, you know, and I was looking at my son's picture too, and she goes, why are you crying? She was a little harsh with me, and I said, well, I miss my mom. I just wish that I was, you know, with my mom right now, you know, so dramatic, you know, about my mom died, you know. And she said, well, you know how you're crying for your mom? Your son is at home. He's probably crying for you like that right now. And it bothered me that she told me the truth. And it was in a way that it wasn't like I just like threw up my hands and I just surrendered to getting sober, but it was just enough that like I could actually see myself clearly for like 1 second, and it just didn't feel good anymore. So the next day they pop open my door, and I don't even know what day it is. I don't know what month it is. I don't know even where I'm at. I'm catching up because I haven't slept for about 10 years. And so I'm trying to catch up on some sleep at this time, and I'm just exhausted. And it was like Groundhog's Day over and over and over again, just waking up, drinking, running the streets, hustling. I mean, it was exhausting life. And so they said, James, and that was my last name. And I was like, yes. And they're like, roll it up because you're going home. And I didn't know what that looked like for me anymore. And so I just, like, my great manipulation, my great thought is that, you know, I'm just going to call husband number 3. I'm going to call my son's father. And, you know, he's been trying to get me to, you know, get sober for so long. And so I call him and I say, hey, I need a ride home. I'm getting released. And he said, absolutely not. Don't call me. And I said, can you just take me to one of those meetings? I want to go to a meeting. And really, I just wanted a ride home. But I knew that if I said that, he would come and get me. And I never asked him for that before. And anybody that loves an alcoholic that's out there drinking, if they call and say, please take me to a meeting, he was there in like 5 minutes. I swear to God. He was so excited. And he, you know, and no fault of his own, you know, poor guy. Like, he wanted me to be sober. I'm the mother of his child. We're still married. I'm sure he had lots of hopes and dreams of us, like, becoming a family together, whatever. And I'm just insane, right? I just want to get home and take a hot shower. And so on the way home, he stops off and I remember we went to Ross and I got some jeans because I'd gained some weight. I had no clothes that fit me. And he bought me a pair of jeans and a t-shirt, and I was able to come in the big house. It was the first time in several years that I was allowed in the house, and I took a shower, and he said, I'm going to take you to this Friday night meeting. It's in Downey. And I said, okay. I don't know if I was just ready or if I was just beat down enough or if I was just willing enough. I don't know what God had in store for me. I'm so glad that I didn't run. I'm so glad that I just was so surrendered at that time. I didn't even know it, that I just said, okay. So I got dressed, and much like, any newcomer that shows up here in Alcoholics Anonymous, I walked in, and there was probably 250 to 300 people at this meeting. To me, it wasn't like now, it wasn't a huge meeting, but to me, it was like I might have been walking into a stadium full of people. And everybody was hugging and loving each other, and I just felt grossed out by that also. I just felt like, why are these people so happy? Why are they all touching and gross? And what is going on here? And this lady came up to me, and she looked very safe. Like, that's the word that I can describe her. She just felt safe to me. And she gave me her number, but then she did something. She asked me for my number. So I gave her my number. And she said, you want to go to this meeting tomorrow morning? It's a Saturday meeting. And I said, I don't know where it came from. I just said, okay. So she told me where the meeting was. She got on there. She showed me exactly where it was, how to get there. I said, all right. And before I'm even home, she's already calling me. And she's already like telling me, I want to see you, blah, blah, blah. She said it was a 10 a.m. meeting. I felt like 10 a.m. was very early. You might have asked me to get there at 2 a.m. I would have probably gotten there easier than 10 a.m. And she said, I don't want you there at 10. I want you there at maybe 9:15. I was like, oh, slow down, lady. And, but I just did. I asked my grandma for some bus money. I didn't have anything. And I got down there. I got down there early, and it was in this church. I walked down this church basement. It was like musty and gross. And I walked down there. And the thing that I can tell you is when I walked into that meeting, I saw her, and she was like across the room from me. And I remember her just like waving, and she called my name out, and she said, Stacy, and she remembered my name. And it had been a really, really long time since anybody remembered my name. It had been a long time. I just was so disconnected from humanity. And I remember going and making me a cup of coffee, and she gave me a donut. She didn't ask me if I wanted one. She just like shoved a donut in my face, and then she turned and she asked me, she said, oh, do you smoke? She doesn't smoke, but she asked me if I did. And I said, yes. And she said, okay, do you want me to go out and smoke with you? And I said, I don't have any cigarettes. And she turned to her other sponsee, and she's like, quick, give me a cigarette. Like we got a live one, And I remember she goes outside, and she hasn't smoked since probably like 1985. And she's like trying to light my cigarette for me. And I'm like shaking. And I remember standing outside of that church with her, with everybody in the little smoking area. And I remember she was talking to me about the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And she started talking to me about sponsorship, and we get back down and we will go to the meeting, and I don't remember anything that was said at this meeting. And I remember she rubbed my back, and she told me it was going to be okay. And she said she was going to give me a ride home, and I said, okay, thank you. And when we sat in her car and we were talking, and I asked her if she would be my sponsor that day. And I didn't really know what that meant. And I just know that she said that if I was willing to stay sober, that she was going to go to hell and back with me. And I said, okay. And she said it was going to be all right. And then I always like to say that that was the last nice thing that lady ever said to me, let me tell you. She does not care about my feelings. Maybe a little bit now, but certainly not when I was new. She cared about what I was doing and things like character building and all that kind of stuff. Ugh, And she cared about my actions, 100%. And I remember when I got my 30-day chip, I was so excited. And I remember I ran up to her, her name was Nancy, and I was like, Nancy, I got my 30 days. And I remember my 30-day chip just felt so special. It was like the greatest chip that I ever took, probably like better than like my 1 year or anything else. And I just felt really good and proud of myself. And she goes, 30 days? She wasn't impressed. I don't know why I thought she was going to be. She goes, you need to be on job search. And I was like, what are you talking about, lady? A job search? She goes, yeah, you're not doing anything. And I was like, job? No. I was like, I said, I'm going to take a year off to find myself. She goes, well, what are you talking about? She goes, if you want to go find yourself, go look in the mirror. That's what she told me. And I said, all right. She goes, there's nothing wrong with you. She goes, we pay our own way around here. She goes, you're going to get a job and you're going to pay your own way. And I said, but I had every excuse in the book. I'm a felon. I've never had a job, but I've never even had a bank account. I have no skills. And she goes, you make the resume and God is going to do the rest. And I said, all right. And she's slowly starting to like spoon feed me, like A, relying upon my higher power, and B, just like trusting in her. Because I didn't even know what that meant to rely upon God, but I trusted her a little bit. And so for a long time, and there are some new people, and so I would like to say that this part of my story, you don't have to do what I did, because you can stay sober and miserable and sober and very crazy for a long time around here. And my first couple of years, especially my first year and a half of sobriety, I absolutely went nuts. And I was still living very much like I was still drinking. However, I was sober, and I don't know how that, balanced out, but here I am, I'm still sober. And so I got this job, and everything on this resume was complete lies. I sent it out, and I got a job within 2 days. And she also had criteria. She goes, I want you to work a regular Monday through Friday, like a regular 9 to 5 hours. I don't want you to work weekends or nights. It's going to interfere with your program. So I said, okay, fine. I just threw up my hands. And that's when my defiance started happening. I lost that first job after probably 3 months. I would tell everybody I got my 60-day chip, my 90-day chip. And then right after I got my 6-month chip, I ended up getting in a fight with another woman from the job. And then I went off and, I was still I was still lying to her. And I was still telling my sponsor, I didn't tell her that I got in a physical altercation with somebody at work. And I was still taking the bus every day like I was going to work, but I was just tanning on the beach. And then I had gotten arrested at Walmart for stealing panties. And then I fell into this crowd with these people doing fraud. And then all of a sudden, I got my license back and I got this brand new car and I'm have all this money. And she's like, what's going on? And all of a sudden I'm on the news, and because I got indicted on fraud charges, and the Fox News came to investigate, and they're chasing me down the street with a microphone. And why are you ripping people off? And I just felt like it all got away from me so fast. And then my sponsor's calling. She's like, why are you on the news? And I'm like, I don't know. Things got really crazy, really fast. Things just got away from me. And then I left my Tuesday night meeting and I ran off to go to the casino. Because that's what you do on Tuesday night after, when have lost your mind. And I'm sitting there at the casino and with all of this fraudulent money, and I'm freaking out, and I'm smoking, and I'm so close to taking a drink, and I have no idea why. But it doesn't hit me like that. The thought in my mind is, you should kill yourself. And I had a cry for help, but I've never actually thought that I was actually going to do it. You know what I mean? Because I actually particularly like myself, and I don't think that I would. I'm so vain. And so I got in my car, and I'm driving on the 10 freeway, and I'm coming back in, and I'm trying to head to Downey, and it's 1 a.m, and I'm just trying to make it to my sponsor's house, because everything inside of me says, open this car door and fling yourself out on the freeway. And I have no idea where that thought came from. I'm as sober as I am today when I had that thought. And I'm driving over there, and I remember knocking on her door. It's probably 2 a.m. by now. And her husband opens the door, and he looked at me, and he said, hey, kid, did you drink? And I was like, his name was Mickey, and I was like, no. And then the next thought was, how did he know I was so close? You know what I mean? How did he know? He knew. Everybody knew. They probably already thought that I was, right there, or that I was about to drink. And I was the last one to know it. My sponsor invited me in, and I always tell this, she looked at me, and I remember she told me, do you want me to I'm going to make you food. Go sit at the kitchen table. And she said, do you want grilled cheese or do you want scrambled eggs? And I can't remember which one I asked for. And she's cooking, and I'm sitting at her table, and we're talking, and she hands me a piece of paper, and she hands me a pen, and she said, I want you to write down, give me 3. Can you write down just 3 secrets that you've been keeping from me since you've been sober? And I thought, 3, I could write a book, lady. Oh my God. And so I just was sitting there, she was cooking, and I was crying, and I was just writing, right? And to me, it was just freedom, at last. I'm just finally, for once in my life, just being a little bit honest with another human being, which I've never been able to do. And I was and I sent over this paper. It was an emotional time. I just sent off everything that I had, and she picks up the paper, and then she just starts laughing at me and I was mortified. I was like, why are you laughing? And she goes, it's okay. And then she started sharing with me her experiences. She started sharing me things that she had done in sobriety. And we talked about it, and that started my whole journey here in Alcoholics Anonymous. And my life got really good. I started doing the work. I started working my steps. I took care of my grandma, and she ended up passing away. She was 100 years old. And I got to be there by her side and take care of her. And I remember my sponsor walked me through a triple divorce. This is very expensive. I don't recommend it. And, the judge had some questions for me. And I remember just being so scared, terrified. And I went in there, and, they were there, and the judge was asking me what happened. And I'm crying, and I'm giving her my 5th step. And it's just ugly. And she's like, it's okay, just granted, and she just like couldn't deal with me, but I walked through it, right? I don't know, with dignity and grace, but I walked through it. And here I was a single lady, and I had my son in my life, and we're trying to rebuild and repair that relationship. I got sober, my son was 13, and my son is 25 now, and it was like me and my son in this big house, and then I had this friend, and I don't know about you, but when you're fairly new, you should get a buddy. You should get like a BFF. Me and her had the same sponsor. We were sober around the same time. And, excuse me. And we would do everything together. We would stalk guys at meetings together. We would go to dances together. We would bounce ideas off of each other before I even call my sponsor. I'm talking to her, see what she's thinking, or if my sponsor gave me some terrible direction, like, something humbling, like go make amends, or that it's your fault, because my sponsor always directs it back to me, right? She's never once, even now, when I call her and I talk about my husband, blah, 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 it's always like, poor Parish. That's what she always says, the first words out of her mouth. Like, she's never once sided with me, ever. And she's a good sponsor, and you should be grateful I have her. And, and so we were doing everything together. And then I started, my son turned 18, and I started noticing some issues, right? My friend's not going to meetings anymore. She's not calling her sponsor. She's staying out all night. And I noticed that my 18-year-old son is also staying out all night. And they're leaving at the same time in the night together, and they're coming back in the morning together, and they're both very thin, and the house is on fire, you guys, and I am just vacuuming. Like, I don't notice that it's burning to the ground. Things are starting to be taken out of the house. I'm missing money. Like, there's a lot of things going on. And I'm sitting at my Friday night meeting one night, and I get a call. My friend called me, and she said, the police are there. I don't know what to do. I guess the SWAT team was there, surrounded the house. My son had her there with a gun. And then there was another girl who was there that was pregnant, and all of this stuff. Like, my world was blowing up. So I just drive over there. And I get out of the car, and the first thing that I can think of, because I don't know why this thought, I was thinking, what are the neighbors going to think? You know what I mean? Like, so ridiculous. And then my next thought was that I hope that my son is okay and that they don't shoot him. And luckily they sent him off, and they took him off to a mental institution for a little while. And he was very resentful at me. And he used to call me from the mental hospital, and he used to say, if you don't come get me now, I'm going to blow up everything. I'm going to kill you. And I'm like, oh, you think I have the power to get you out? Like, they have you on a hold, buddy. But he was just in a drug psychosis, And he started, drinking and using with my friend. And they had an affair in my house together. And she was in her mid-40s at the time, and he was 18. And I'm going to tell you right now, I was so, so resentful at that woman. I was so angry. And I would go to meetings, and she left my house. I asked her, actually not even in a terrible way, if she would please leave. It was very hard. And I would badmouth her. I proceeded to badmouth her, and I proceeded to tell everybody what she had done, how she had done it, that my son is out there suffering because of her. I mean, my son was partying with like a hot 40-something-year-old at 18. I mean, he was fine. Do you know what I mean? Like, he was going to do that anyway. Whatever. He is living his life, right? And I can't blame her, but I did for so long. And everywhere that I went, everybody was going to hear about it. And until one day I was at my Tuesday women's meeting, and, just like they, did with him, they bring her as a women's meeting, and they bring them in the little van, and the girls from the rehab, she gets out, and she's in rehab now, and she's got maybe a day or two. And everybody, being good members of Alcoholics Anonymous, all of my friends that, are listening to my tales of woe of my son is now homeless in the streets, and it's her fault, right? She gets out, and she comes into the meeting, and they're all hugging her. Why are you loving her? Why are you welcoming her? Don't you know she's ruined my life? So insane. And so I get mad and flip off my meeting, and I text my sponsor. I'm leaving my meeting, by the way. I am not coming back because she's there. And I text my sponsor, good luck without me. That didn't go over very well. And she said, you know what? She texted me back, and she said, this nonsense has gone on too long. She's like, I want your writing done by the time I'm out of this meeting, and you're going to call me with it. And she's like, you're going to come back here next week and you're going to make amends for your actions. And then you're going to sit down and you're going to have a talk with her. And I said, okay. I don't know why. I just said, okay. It was like another surrender, you know. Throughout my sobriety, it's like I move at the speed of pain sometimes. I don't know why that is. But I just couldn't live like that anymore. And I just said, all right. And I threw up my hands. And you know what I discovered is that I don't care if it's somebody's son, husband, brother. I really don't care. I'm going to do whatever I need to do. When the party's on, the party's on. And I'm not any different than she is. And so I went down and I spoke to her. I went to her rehab and we had a really good talk. And I was able to make a sincere amends. And I just felt like I never wanted to ever make another newcomer feel, thank you so much, unwanted in the meeting ever again. Like I never wanted anybody that came in here as new. I remember that feeling of when I walked down in that church basement and I saw my sponsor and her remembering my name and how welcomed and loved that I felt here in Alcoholics Anonymous. Like I didn't want to ever make anybody who was new feel unwelcome and not safe here. And I don't know whatever happened to her. I pray for her all the time. I saw her maybe 2 or 3 years ago. She was homeless and walking down the street and, you know, poor thing. And my heart goes out to her. And then it got me thinking, you know, my son, he had some periods of sobriety and, you know, right now he's off doing his thing. You know, he's in the streets and, you know, he's only been out for a few years, several years. And I just kept thinking like, man, this is painful. And then all of a sudden I was like, I'm not going to think about my pain. And I was thinking, you know, I still have my dad. And, you know, my little dad is a little old man now. And you know, when I went to make amends to him, it was like, sorry, I'm sober. Yeah, I mean, like, here, can you help me? You know, whatever. I don't know. I don't even know how to make amends. I was just there. And, you know, my dad's not the easiest guy to talk to. He's never really said, I love you. He's the kind that he'll look at your tires and he'll be like, your tires are bald. Let's go to Costco. And, like, that's his way. Like, he'll buy me new tires for my car. Like, he won't. The other day, he came over to my house, and he's like, you got some kind of wire hanging here. And he was, like, trying to fix something. But he's not, like, a lovey guy. And so I was thinking, was the little amends that I made to him when I got sober, was, like, that enough? Because I think of, like, the pain that I've gone through watching my son, like, on his journey. And then I had given my dad a lifetime full of that, and even more. And so I had to start small, and I didn't even know how to connect with him. And I felt like, for a long time, like, he just doesn't know how to love me. And I realized that, like, I was the one who had backed away from him. He's always been there. He's been the same guy since I was born. And so I started doing things like I started setting an alarm on my phone, right, to give him a call. And because I didn't know how to just pick up the phone. And I would do things like, hey, Dad, how are ya? I don't know how to start a conversation with this man. I don't know how to, like, love him. I don't even know who he is. And I was always expecting for him to know me. And so I just had to, like, throw all those kind of, like, old ideas out of the window and just, like wash away all of that and started asking him about himself and asking him about his life and about his dad, about things that I didn't know, and taking him out to eat and, you know, going over to his house and you know, he's kind of a shaky guy. He's got Parkinson's and he gets, you know, he kind of cusses a lot and, you know, he wants me to help him fix stuff. And so I go there and, you know, he gets mad at me for helping, but, you know, I'm real patient with him. And 2 years ago, I took him out for Father's Day and it was just me and him. And I called him up and I said, hey, old man, I'm going to come and I'm going to take you to eat breakfast. He said, okay. So I go and I pick him up and we go to this little diner and we're sitting there and, you know, he's like, hey, and, you know, talking to me. And this guy comes in for my meeting and his name is Mike. And Mike is like everybody's dad. I don't know if your meeting has one, but like he's got like a lot of kids and grandkids and he's just like, you know, like a nice guy and sponsors a lot of the guys. And he's just like a solid dad figure. And he was somebody that, like, if I were to say, like, I want my dad to be like this, it was going to be like Mike, right? And he was a good guy, and he was kind of like a surrogate stand-in for me before I, you know, had really gotten to know my dad again. And he comes in, and it's Father's Day, and he's with all his kids and his grandkids. And, you know, they're getting ready to be seated to eat breakfast, too. And he comes up to me, and he goes, is this your dad? And I said, yeah. And, you know, they introduce themselves, and he shakes his hand, and then he reaches down, and he goes to give me a hug. And he whispers in my ear, and he says, you know what? You're a really good daughter. And I've been called a lot of things in my life, and a good daughter was never one of them. A good anything was never one of them. And it felt really good to hear. And even though we drove out of the parking lot, my dad was yelling about why are you driving like that? You're going too fast. And I was like, oh, God, remember, you're a good daughter. Don't cuss at him. And like, that's how it's been for me. It's always been like a couple steps forward, maybe one back, a couple steps forward, like just keep going. I know like I've heard a lot of speakers in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I had gotten really down on myself about a year ago because I went to start school. You know, I enrolled in this, I tested into this like advanced program and all of this stuff, and it was just like way too much for me. And I had like this complete meltdown, right? And I called my sponsor and I was like, I'm a failure. I can't do it. I can't whatever. And blah, blah, blah. And crying. And I said, you know, I hear these speakers and they have a year of sobriety and they're now an astronaut, and that's never going to be me. You know, such and such is an attorney now. And she's like, you don't want to be an astronaut anyway. You know, she's so funny. And I realized that, like, it doesn't matter. You know, here I am, you know, I'm just like one girl who got sober, and I just go to my little job and I just like pay my little bills, and I'm of service everywhere that I can be. And no, I'm not an astronaut and I'm not an attorney, but all I know is that I love Alcoholics Anonymous, and anytime, anywhere they ask me to go and share my experience, strength, and hope with them, like I'm there. And if that's all that I have to give, like I'm overpaid 100% because of this program. And that's it. Thank you for letting me share.